Sarah Winters had been teaching at the Galactic Youth Academy on Station Horizon for exactly 3 months. She was the first human to ever hold a teaching position at the prestigious institution. The academy served children from 12 different species across the known galaxy. Her classroom held 37 cubs, pups, and younglings from 7 different worlds. Most of them had never seen a human before she walked through the door on her first day. The Karathi cubs were the largest in her class. They stood nearly 4 feet tall at only 6 years old. Their bodies were covered in soft gray fur, and their ears were long and pointed like those of Earth rabbits. But their eyes were sharp and intelligent, always watching, always learning. The Karathi were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors. Their home world was harsh and cold. Their society valued strength above all else. Yet here, in Sarah's classroom, the 5 Karathi cubs sat quietly in the back row. They never spoke unless spoken to. They never caused trouble. They simply observed. Sarah found them fascinating. She had read about the Karathi before accepting this position. The research documents described them as cold, distant, and emotionally closed off. They formed strong bonds only within their own packs. They did not trust outsiders. They certainly did not trust other species. Yet every day, Sarah caught the youngest Karathi cub, Ven, watching her with curious eyes. He was smaller than the others. His fur was lighter, almost silver in the station's artificial light. He rarely participated in group activities. The other Karathi cubs protected him like he was made of glass. On this particular morning, Sarah arrived to class early. She had papers to organize and lessons to prepare. The heating system in her quarters had malfunctioned again during the night. She had dressed quickly in the cold, pulling on her standard teaching uniform without much care. The uniform was simple: dark blue pants, a white button-up shirt, and a blue jacket with the academy's symbol on the chest. She had not noticed that her collar was folded wrong. One side stuck up at an odd angle. The other side was tucked beneath her jacket in a messy lump. The cubs began arriving shortly after she finished setting up her desk. They entered in small groups, chattering in their various languages. The universal translators embedded in their ears converted everything to a common tongue. Sarah greeted each of them with a smile. She had learned early on that human smiles made many species uncomfortable. Showing teeth was a sign of aggression on most worlds. But she had explained to her students that humans smiled to show happiness and welcome. Most of them had grown used to it by now. Some even tried to smile back, though their faces were not built for such expressions. Ven was the last to enter. He walked slowly, his silver fur catching the light. His fellow Karathi cubs walked beside him, flanking him like bodyguards. They took their seats in the back row without a word. Sarah began her lesson on planetary ecosystems. She talked about how different worlds developed different forms of life. She showed holographic images of Earth's forests, oceans, and deserts. The cubs watched with wide eyes. Many of them had never seen a world with so much water. It was during a pause in her lecture that she noticed it. Sarah had turned to adjust the holographic display when she caught her reflection in the dark screen. Her collar was a disaster. One side pointed toward the ceiling. The other was completely hidden. She looked ridiculous. Heat rose to her cheeks. She was a professional. She was supposed to set an example. And here she was, looking like she had gotten dressed in the dark. She reached up with both hands to fix the problem. Her fingers worked quickly, trying to fold the fabric correctly. But the material was stiff. The academy uniforms were designed to last, not to be comfortable or easy to adjust. She tugged at the stubborn collar, but it refused to cooperate. A small sound of frustration escaped her lips. The classroom had gone silent. Sarah looked up to find 37 pairs of eyes watching her. Some of the cubs looked confused. Others looked curious. A few of the older students seemed amused. Sarah felt her face grow even warmer. She tried again to fix the collar, but her fingers fumbled with the fabric. Then something unexpected happened. Ven stood up from his seat. The other Karathi cubs tensed immediately. They watched their smallest member with worried eyes. But Ven walked forward anyway. His steps were slow and careful. He approached Sarah's desk and stopped just a few feet away. His silver eyes met hers. He did not speak. He simply lowered his head slightly, a gesture of respect among his people, and reached up with his small clawed hands. Sarah froze. She did not know what to do. No student had ever approached her like this. The Karathi were not known for physical contact with other species. Yet here was little Ven, his gentle claws carefully adjusting her collar. He folded the fabric with surprising precision. His movements were slow and deliberate. He treated the task like it was the most important thing in the universe. Before Sarah could find words, another Karathi cub stood. This one was named Rin. She was the largest of the group, the unofficial leader. She walked forward with the same careful steps. She lowered her head beside Ven and used her own claws to smooth the other side of Sarah's collar. Then the third Karathi cub rose, and the fourth, and the fifth. They gathered around their teacher in a small circle. Each one lowered their head and contributed to the task. They adjusted the fabric until it sat perfectly against Sarah's neck. The collar was straight and smooth. It looked better than when she had first put it on. The rest of the classroom watched in stunned silence. None of them had ever seen the Karathi cubs do anything like this. The Karathi kept to themselves. They did not help others. They did not show affection or care for those outside their pack. Yet here they were, treating their human teacher like one of their own. Sarah felt her eyes grow wet. She blinked rapidly, trying to hold back the tears. Humans cried when they were happy. She had explained this to her students before, but she had never expected to cry in front of them. The Karathi cubs stepped back when their work was done. They stood in a line before her, their heads still slightly bowed. The oldest Karathi cub, Rin, spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft but clear. She said that among her people, helping someone with their appearance was a sign of pack bonding. It meant that you saw someone as family. It meant that you would protect them and care for them. It meant that they were no longer an outsider. Sarah did not know what to say. She had spent 3 months trying to earn the trust of her students. She had worked hard to make them comfortable with her strange human ways. She had never expected this. She had never imagined that the proud Karathi cubs would accept her as one of their own. Little Ven spoke next. His voice was barely above a whisper. He said that Sarah had been kind to him since the first day. She had never made him feel small or weak. She had never pushed him to speak when he was not ready. She had protected him from the teasing of other students without making a scene. She had treated him like he mattered, and in his culture that meant she deserved to be protected in return. The other students in the classroom began to shift. They looked at each other with understanding eyes. One by one they stood from their seats. A small Valerian pup walked forward and straightened the edge of Sarah's jacket. A group of Myrthian younglings smoothed the fabric of her sleeves. Even the tall Orcanian student in the front row leaned over to adjust the academy symbol on her chest, so it hung perfectly straight. Within minutes, every student in the classroom had contributed something. They had adjusted her uniform until it was flawless. They had gathered around her in a circle of warmth and acceptance. And when they were done, they returned to their seats with satisfied expressions. The lesson resumed as if nothing unusual had happened, but everything had changed. Sarah understood that now. She had come to this station as an outsider, a strange creature from a distant world. She had worried that she would never truly belong. But these children had shown her something beautiful. They had shown her that kindness crosses all boundaries. They had shown her that family is not about blood or species. Family is about choosing to care for someone, even when it is not expected. Sarah finished her lesson with a full heart. She talked about ecosystems and survival and adaptation, but in her mind, she was thinking about something else entirely. She was thinking about how these young creatures from across the galaxy had taught her the most important lesson of all. They had taught her that humanity's greatest gift was not strength or intelligence or ambition. It was the ability to make others feel seen and valued. And when you gave that gift freely, it came back to you in ways you never expected. The bell rang to signal the end of class. The cubs gathered their things and began filing out of the room. Ven paused at the door and looked back at Sarah. His silver eyes were warm. He did not smile, but something in his expression was soft and gentle. He gave a small nod, a gesture of farewell and respect, and then he was gone. Sarah sat at her desk for a long moment after the room emptied. She touched her collar, feeling the perfectly folded fabric beneath her fingers. She thought about the 5 Korathi cubs who had accepted her into their pack. She thought about the other students who had followed their example, and she smiled, knowing that somewhere out there in the vast galaxy, humans were being remembered for something wonderful. They were being remembered for kindness, and that was the greatest legacy of all.